as you join us for this ACTE webinar titled Student Access and Equity During a Time of Uncertainty. I am Patrick Biggerstaff. I serve as a CTE director in the Indianapolis area and also represent our ACTE administrative division as vice president. This webinar is offered as a service of the ACTE administration division, as well as the special population section of ACTE's new and related services division. I know that their vice president, Rachel Mann, is present on today's call. So Rachel, we appreciate you being here, as well as everyone else who has joined us today. Because we're limited to 1 hour, we've asked that all participants will remain muted throughout the entirety of the call. Our resources and questions can be added to the chat box. Following the presentation, we will ask ACTE not only to upload this webinar to the ACTE website, but also to share a resources page and any frequently asked questions from the chat box. So we'll begin by introducing each of our panelists, and then we'll get rolling with our questions. Our first panelist is Julie Lamb, Grant Director for the GOALS program. That's Gainful Occupation and Academic Learning Services. She's also a licensed professional counselor at Redlands Community College. Julie is a representative of CTEC, the Career and Tech Ed Equity Council. So Julie, we'll ask you to begin by sharing a little bit about what your organization is doing to ensure equity and access during this time.
Sure thing. I think, given the challenging times that we're in right now, the most important thing is to remain connected to our students. We're blessed to still be open in a sense. We're allowing a few people on campus and we're able to meet with students by appointment. So, reaching out through social media to help our most vulnerable students with that, access is so important. So, just being able to set those appointments to have them come in. I personally serve as the director of the GOALS program, and my students are all temporary assistance to needy families. So they are some of the most vulnerable students that we have. And I had a student in my office earlier this week, and she came in by appointment, and she said, I just feel kind of lost. I don't, I'm missing the structure. This college was her sanctuary. And as we've transitioned, it's just brought on a lot of issues for our students. So keeping that connection to me is paramount. However it's done based on, the policy of the school. But just reaching out and making sure if there's a need there that we can refer them to appropriate community resource, that type of thing. So I think we're trying to do as best as we can in this environment to maintain that connection.
Excellent. Thank you, Julie. Next, we have Dr. Michael Harvey. Mike Harvey is a professor of education in the Workforce Education and Development Academic Program at Penn State University. He's also served as a CTE administrator in Maine, as a professor of special education at Ball State University, and he was the director of the doctoral program and program manager for the Director of Exceptional Needs licensure program at Ball State University. Dr. Harvey, same question. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that's going on right now?
Sure. At Penn State, we offer a personal professional development center. Both Jaime, Lou Pia, and I work there. I'm a part-time faculty member there and part-time faculty member with the Learning and Performance Systems department at Penn State. And I do CTE leadership primarily in my role here at Penn State. We, through the Personal Professional Development Center, do Pennsylvania certification in teaching, Voc 1 and Voc 2, school administration and cooperative education. We provide competency-based teacher educational services. And the Personal Professional Development Center actually works with two academic units, both the Workforce Education and Development Program and Agricultural and Extensive Education Program. Our faculty members are working through courses and reaching out to students on an as-need basis, particularly as we've transitioned from online and also campus-based courses. This includes providing supports for students with disabilities and students with special needs that are enrolled in our programs. We've done more work as well through the Personal Professional Development Center in helping leaders in CTEs at the local level to upscale and get ready for teaching online. And I'm going to let Jaime talk more as the academic advisor in the Personal Professional Development Center. He's really much closer to that skill set than I am.
Thank you. So as Dr. Harvey had said, also from Penn State University, we have academic advisor Jaime Liu. He instructs and advises students pursuing state certification as career and technical education teachers. Jaime?
Hello, everyone. I also started out life as a CTE teacher for many years. I've been involved at Penn State now for 20 years, coming on first in teacher education. Everything that Mike said pretty much fills in a lot of the blanks for me too, because we do work together in the center. But in the last few years, I have stepped into the academic advisory role. Therefore, I'm kind of in a frontline position with our students, with our teachers who are going for their certification. At this time, since we've started the issues with COVID-19 and we've shut the campus down per se, we're still extremely active in educating students and educating our teachers and working with them. And the issue that I have is keeping as much communication open as possible, be it through phone, computer, things like Zoom, like we're doing now, any way I can possibly do, because Penn State has an area where a lot of our folks are in rural situations. So, they don't always have the best access as far as internet goes, and communication, even cellular communication with the mountains here can be difficult sometimes. So biggest challenge for me is communication and keeping those lines open, and also quelling rumors and trying to be a little bit of a calming effect.
Thank you very much, Jaime. We're excited to have these three expert panelists with us here today. We've got several questions to roll through. So again, if you are on this call and are not a panelist, if you could remain muted, we would definitely appreciate it. Our next question goes to Dr. Michael Harvey. Given the extreme challenges that we are facing at this time, what do you feel are the most important things for leaders to be doing right now?
I think the critical piece as far as building critical mass is leaders at all levels, whether it's post-secondary or secondary in CTE, need to help their faculty transition, particularly teachers, transition to online distance learning. And so just being able to upscale, provide professional development, point to resources are going to be absolutely essential in moving into those virtual learning environments. I think the other thing that's critical is that CTE leaders in particular need to know about the CARES Act and need to understand that there are a lot of ways that we can help students, and also particularly students with disabilities, which are part of the special populations group. But the CARES Act is a $2 trillion piece of legislation, of which $30 billion goes to a stimulus package in relationship to educational funding. Within that, the elementary and secondary ed programs get $13.5 million, and those are dollars that are allocated to states through the Title I formula. And those dollars can be used for a number of things, but are critically pointed to helping with immediate needs with students and teachers as we face school closures. Many states, and Pennsylvania just announced today that we are closed for the remainder of this academic year. Several states, Kansas was the first, that moved in that direction. The other thing that the CARES Act does, it allows us to spend money through those state dollars to take a look at technology and support for distance education. I think a key piece that we need to pay attention to is that the dollars can be used to address low-income students, students with disabilities, English language learners, migrant students, students with experiencing homelessness, and also children who are in foster care. And so understanding where those dollars go in relationship to your state plan and how you can access those, and incidentally, this does include the purchase of technology, is going to be very, very important for school leaders. And so I think paying attention to what's happening at the local level with your needs, cross-referencing that with what's happening at the federal level with dollars that are coming to us from relief packages like CARES, and then being able to utilize those resources when they're available to meet the needs are going to be absolutely paramount, as well as supporting your students and your teachers.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other ideas or comments from our other panelists? Okay.
I think you got it. Yeah.
Next question we'll toss to Jaime Liu Pia. How's your institution or those who you work with creatively dealing with hands-on or kinesthetic learning that is fundamental to so many CTE programs?
Well, of course, when this all started, we shifted our program itself and the university in general, shifted to online resources. Luckily, Penn State does have a good base of that. Some people do and some people don't. PSU has led actually the world in distance education. So that's a little bit in our favor, but we are dealing with lots of folks who have not had those opportunities, even though they have been working with us and have been our students. So part of that is when we shift to online resources, as Dr. Harvey talked about, is first of all, providing information and knowledge and online support. How do you start teaching hands-on learning to people when they are sitting in their home and are separated from an instructor who is also sitting in their home, and they're more used to doing, hands-on teaching, like things like culinary arts, etc. That becomes a challenge. So we're first of all trying to give support just on a technical basis, because how do you actually use the technology? Some people will be good at it, some people will not, and that has to be taken into consideration. What we're also doing is we're looking at content. The content that you have been teaching, how can we make that more teachable under the situations? Can we do some flipping of the classroom? In this case, flipping the digital classroom. How do we get our students involved more? A part of that is some of the professional development we're doing. We've been holding sessions in professional development where we've been giving our teachers different ideas, things that they can use. We have some teachers who have become proficient, and even before this all started, proficient in things like GoPros and using various video, or knowing where to get some of those resources. They're really good in their questioning techniques and engaging students even on a digital basis. So those are things we're trying in our professional development to reach out to other teachers and have teachers talk to teachers, especially in special needs, working with our IUs, for example. All of those kinds of things. Things like assessment techniques, reflection on once you're doing it, and evaluation. We're using something too called career clusters. We're trying to tie in people who are teaching in the same career, so they can start talking to each other, so they can start sharing ideas. Some of our best ideas have come from our teachers, but because they've been isolated a little bit, they haven't gotten very far. By doing what we're doing now is with using occupational clusters, we're trying to involve all those folks in talking to each other. How do you teach this particular skill? How do you teach this particular thing? And it has become helpful, and our teachers have responded very positively to it.
Thank you, Jaime. So as a follow-up to all of our panelists, I'll ask if you're aware of any quality resources that can be used to help support this type of learning as we shift to try to replicate hands-on activities in a virtual environment. Also, I will again ask our panelists, or sorry, not our panelists, but our guests for this webinar. If you have resources that you are aware of, please do share them in the chat room so that we can vet those and then share them on our resources page at ACTE. So again, our panelists, any resources you are aware of that can support this kind of hands-on replacement online?
A couple of ideas, and I want to give a shout out to the number of people from the great state of Maine. I was an administrator at the Lewiston Regional Technical Center years ago, Hail to folks from Maine. We still have summer property there. At any rate, I think that one of the things you want to take a look at is reaching out to your professional organizations. For example, the Carpenters Union may have training videos and resources that you could use and upscale in your teaching. Additionally, ACTE and Advanced CTE have resources on their web pages, and I can point to those here a little later in the presentation. There are also commercial vendors out there that you'll want to take a look at, and you'll want to vet those materials to make sure that they work. Lastly, instead of scrambling, we talked in our meeting yesterday, I happened to just do a quick search on YouTube about rebuilding a diesel engine. And I got a number of great videos, but I happened to look at putting a new camshaft into a Cummins diesel cat engine. And what I saw was an excellent YouTube video that could be used. So I think instructors need to be creative. We don't have those hands-on environments, but can we do something that replicates? The other thing that I know is happening, and Jaime talked about this in some of the work that Penn State is doing with our colleagues and teachers in the field, a lot of teachers are doing home videos. They're setting up and doing things that they can do that would replicate, or they're reaching out to businesses who are part of their joint operating committees, and those businesses, for example, restaurants, may be closed, and so you could have people do videos and share those vignettes for teaching purposes as well. But be creative, folks. That's kind of the byline of the day. And as Jaime said, I think it's important to share the wealth and share the knowledge. If you find things that work and you know colleagues that are in your same industry area, be sure to share those with them. We're in this together, not in this alone.
Any other thoughts from our panel on available resources?
I would just echo the YouTube example. So many things you can learn on there. And then my niece is an art teacher, and she was just doing, she just created her own video for her students. And I saw where a parent said, my child really appreciated that, and she was just trying to mimic everything that you were doing. It was an art project. But, just seeing her teacher's face, that was just such a great thing for those kids to see.
Yeah, I think one of the resources that people may not be thinking about at this point is there are a lot of folks, a lot of businesses who are shut down now. That means the owners of those businesses, especially if they're small businesses, may have some time. Those are some people you might want to reach out to and talk to. They have knowledge and expertise too. One example I can give you is one of the special needs instructors that I know in where we are, our bus line is still running. And he went out and reached out to them, and he ended up making a video riding, how to ride the bus, how to pay for it, how to do, how to get to work. It was a perfect time to do it because although the bus is running, it's very limited. And he was the only person on the bus other than the driver. So they were able to actually keep social distancing. He was able to make a fantastic video, and it's very, very useful. So those are kinds of things you have to think about right now.
Thank you. Dr. Harvey, we're in a time where expediency is essential. We're trying to act sometimes with imperfect information. What advice can you give to leaders so that they can be confident in taking decisive action?
I think it's critical that you know your hierarchical structure, your organizational structure, and pay attention to that, because there's a push to make quick decisions, to move agendas, to meet the needs that are right before us. But in times of urgency, sometimes we maybe don't connect all of the dots. So I would encourage people to be mindful in their movement towards decision making, taking a look at communicating at all levels, understanding that we work with people who are above us and we work with people who are below us. We also work with a variety of different stakeholders, so communicating with them. I think doing the best you can with making data-driven decisions with the best data that you can garner is going to help shape the decision, and make sure that the decisions that you make don't create surprises for people. So as you're moving forward, be thinking about who are the people that you don't want to surprise, because those are the ones that potentially can be problematic as you move forward with decision making. Also, most administrators I know have a trusted team of people that they talk with and that they work with. And this is both formally in their organization, but also an informal group. Use that informal group because they can be your eyes and ears, can help give you a second set of eyes that maybe will help you in good decision making.
Can I get some?
So as a reminder to the guests to today's webinar, if you could please ensure that your microphones are muted, we would appreciate it. Dr. Harvey, you had mentioned the importance of communicating at all levels. So before someone makes a major decision, who all, other than the stakeholders you've referenced, would you recommend that they consult with for advice?
Well, in Pennsylvania, and we may be unique, but in Pennsylvania, typically we have career and technology centers, which are regionalized centers. I know when I was in Maine, that was a structure that was used as well, where you had several sending schools that were sending students to you on a turnaround or half-day program, typically a 2 or a 3-year program design feature. Again, you have in Pennsylvania a superintendent of record of that advisory board. You also have a joint operating committee, which is made up of school board members from each of those representative schools that have an oversight in looking at career and technical ed programs here. In many cases, many CTE leaders have a PAC, which is a professional advisory committee that they would refer to or could refer to. I think it's absolutely essential, and it's interesting, I've talked with 2 or 3 directors here in our region about work that they're doing with COVID-19 and the impact, and they all have talked about talking very actively with their attorneys or with their solicitors. So I think that that's a communication point of interest that you need to be paying attention to. And then particular stakeholder groups as needed, your occupational advisory committees as need be. When it comes to special pops and understanding the populations within special populations that we want to pay attention to, the Office of Civil Rights and OSEPs have been very clear that we want to make sure that we're providing and continuing to provide educational services as best we can for students who are covered with an IEP under IDEA or a 504 plan under ADA and the Rehab Act. So you need to work with those professionals, special education, and then those 504 planning committees at the local level on decision making. If you're working with English language learners, or if you're working with students who are in rural areas and maybe SES or free and reduced lunch with meals programs, you just need to make sure you cover the bases with the people that you're working with. And these are all folks that are important. And I know that Julie talked a little bit about mental health services. I think it's absolutely essential. If you look at the CDC guidelines make sure that health and mental health are included in decision making around school closures. And so working with school guidance counselors and those folks are going to be essential.
Thank you. Jaime, next question goes to you. It seems that everyone has come out of the woodwork offering online resources. What are your thoughts on how we can vet those for quality?
As you said, the moment this started, myself and I know my colleagues, and I'm sure people listening to this, have started to receive lots of emails, lots of solicitation on things to help them, etc. I would kind of go back to what Dr. Harvey was talking about just previously. First of all, you really want to look to your own professional organizations. You want to look to your schools. You want to look to all of the folks who exist right now, who you would normally use anyway. There's not to be said that some of the things that are coming out may be helpful or useful, but you may not have the time right now or the ability to vet those properly. If you see things that look promising, it's time maybe to make a little list. If you have the ability to check some of them out, that's great. If not, keep them in mind. They may be things you want to check out later. But the issue does become There's no magic bullet or magic cure. Good teachers, and especially teachers in special pops, good special pops teachers are still going to be good teachers, whether they're doing face-to-face instruction or they're doing online instruction. Use your own instincts, your professionalism, I would say. Follow what you would normally do in face-to-face instruction. Good preparation is good preparation. Some people, when they see the technology, it becomes a wall and a barrier for them, and they forget that they are competent teachers and they can do it. So they need to be prepared just like they would for a face-to-face. They need to do a good presentation and maybe rethink how that presentation would be, as we said, with videos and things like that. The same with the application, because right now, as I said with employers, we also have a unique situation that parents are in the homes with their children, and you have access to parents also. So they can be also a good resource in addition to some of the new things that are coming out right now. And then finally, just the idea of examination, reflection, and evaluation. So those things are all going to be very helpful to you. And that's really the route you got to do. As new things appear, as new ideas come, some will be wonderful. Some will be helpful. Some will be helpful to some people. Some will not be helpful, and some may not be helpful to you where they are helpful to others. So you have to winnow them and go through them. But that's going to take time. And in a time of immediacy that we have now, you need to fall back on your own skills and really work on them first, and then look at the other issues that are coming up.
So, Jaime, you talked a little earlier about the fact that your team is investing a lot in helping people understand how to facilitate virtual learning. So we've got some folks working in CTE who are very comfortable working in a virtual environment. And then we have others whom you might consider a little slower on the uptick. So how do we put supports in place? What does that training look like to help onboard our colleagues into a virtual learning environment?
The training, I can say the training for us here at Penn State, because of our situation, for the longest time, we have identified a number of teachers who are really, really good in what they do in certain areas. One of those areas is the use of technology, but we have lots of other areas. But right now, that particular skill is coming to the fore. So what we have been doing is we have been tapping those teachers to work within their occupational clusters and to work with our other teachers in doing this same thing and having our own webinars and having our own professional development where they can talk to each other. In fact, we have someone right now who's holding, I don't want to say daily, but almost every other day or every third day webinars for our teachers, bringing others in, answering some of these questions and helping them. If you have some tech savvy people, and not only tech savvy, but tech savvy who are also good teachers, those are a good resource to be using. And that's what we're doing right now. And believe it or not, we have quite a few of our teachers signing into these webinars, these kind of ad hoc webinars, asking a lot of questions and getting help. So we're seeing some success out of it.
Great. Any comments from the other panelists?
I would just suggest also one of the things we're doing in Oklahoma among our TANF directors and staff is we have created a Facebook group, just a closed group. And we are able to do that almost in real time to ask those questions. And so I would just maybe suggest that as an option for folks.
Great, thank you.
I have some resources if you want me to share those.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, I'm going to move to share screen for just a minute. These are just some quick resources that I pulled up. Hopefully we have internet that will work quickly and do what we need to do. Most folks are aware of advanced CTE. If you're not on their daily news feed, I would highly suggest that you get on their daily news feed. But they have a couple of things on their website under COVID-19. just general information, basically webinars about the CARES Act, information on closures and school closures, those kinds of things that I think are important for folks to take a look at. They also have some specific things in relationship to working and teaching lessons with courses that are online, global toolkit. They have some additional online tools that are here, a variety of things that can be helpful. I think one of the things that's important is to go to your professional organizations. In addition, ACTE also has information that's important. And again, just a moment here. One of the things that's neat about ACTE, and I know Lauren is capturing these websites so that she will share those with you as I move through these quickly for the sake of time. But one of the things that's absolutely unique, if you have not seen this, is that ACTE is opening up to anybody through the beginning of May, free membership to get on their transition to teaching online. And there are a number of courses that are here that are available to you. And basically you go into the CTE Learn site, you enter in the code MK-ACTE, and you can actually be online and have access to these learning materials as well. They also have free distance learning materials that are here that you can click to. And what I want to do is just go back to this particular website because it will take us back to what these resources are. And if you take a look, you can see that some of their work is in agriculture, business and marketing, engineering, technology and IT, culinary and hospitality, different T&I, adult ed, general learning tips. And as you move down through this, you get, again, additional tools that are available to you, and then just some webinars and some links that are there as well. So use your professional organizations, both advanced CTE and ACTE, particularly with that free membership. Now, when it comes to taking a look at working with students with disabilities and understanding the equity issues, I reached out to Marilyn Bosgarden, who was the past president of CEC and is a good friend of mine at UMass Amherst. And basically, folks can be going to the Council for Exceptional Children's website. This is the professional group as ACTE is to Career and Technical Ed. The Council for Exceptional Children, or CEC, is to the special education community. And I think it's important to go in. And again, CEC is offering to people a free access to their website and their information. And you can go in and take a look. This is open to people through May 31st. It's CEC ED 60 is the join membership. And basically you can go in and they have teaching online tips. They have tips for school administrators for resources. They have social emotional learning tips, which is in Julie's bailiwick. They have access to the CDC materials. There are a variety of things that are here in teaching online and with their webinar series. This is an open webinar series that they have that makes sense, and there are other webinars available as well. And there's one other thing that I want to show you, and it's under this school district administrator resource list. If you go in and look at this website, about midway down, it says amazing educational resources. And if you click on this view link, this view link will be like you're hitting the jackpot in $1 million lottery. This particular website, now I need to be very clear with you. I have not vetted this. This is a K-6 special education resource, but there are tools and websites here that can be used for instructional purposes that would embed in CTE programs and learning. I happened to look at one that was dealing with geometry, and I looked through a couple of things that were there, and I would think that a carpentry class or an engineering class or a CAD drafting class could use some of those resources. But it will tell you the company, it will tell you the subject area, it will tell you the grade level, will give you the link, will give you a description of what this particular website does, and then it will give you the parameters of the free access that's available. And I don't want to spend a bunch of time with this, but as I continue to talk about what a great resource this is, I'm going to just pan down through this. I hope I don't create car sickness in anybody who has motion sickness, but take a look at this. This is a website with a list of resources that goes on and on and on and on. It would take a CTE administrator a month of Sunday to pull this together. Whereas you have this in one place, and I'm still talking and I haven't gotten to the end of this, you have this in one place as a free access on the CTE, the CEC website. At any rate, resource for you to take a look at. I know that the folks at CEC are very interested in working together with partnering with CTE instructors to make sure that for students with disabilities that they have a continuation of program services in relationship to school closure that's tied to the local level and decision making at the local level. But I wanted to share these three professional websites: Advanced CTE, ACTE, and also the Free Connect in relationship to educational services and websites that are open through the Council for Exceptional Children, and their websites and resource materials as well on teaching online. They have a couple of great schematics in that PowerPoint and their webinar series with that. And with that, I'm hoping, Lauren, that you captured those, and I'm going to get out of screen sharing for the sake of the continued conversation.
Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
Julie, the next question's for you. In a crisis, we all want to help as much as possible, but we have limited time and resources. Also, professionals have to think of their own families and personal responsibilities. So what are your recommendations on how we find balance?
Wow, that's a great question, isn't it? I mean, that's just a challenge, especially now with the pandemic going on. But I think professionally, as you know, as leaders and school administrators, it's important to be aware that due to the pandemic, that we're all experiencing a time of what I call collective cultural trauma. Okay, so people may be processing what's going on differently, and some may have feelings of anxiety, depression. Some maybe even have feelings of grief and loss, because there's a kind of a loss of freedom. I've gotten some feedback from some students and clients that they feel like I can't go anywhere. I feel like I've lost my freedom as an individual. So there's people process things differently. So I think we need to meet our colleagues and staff, students, just meet them where they are. I think that's so important, and just try to be mindful of what they're going through, the trauma they may be experiencing at home or professionally. It's a great time to support each other. Reach out to professional organizations. That's kind of been a theme, I think, throughout this webinar, is really reach out to our colleagues and our partners, such as ACT, as you're doing today, and also CTEC, which I'm kind of representing CTEC, Educational Equity today. And if Lauren, if you wouldn't mind, just pop up the our website, ctec.org. Okay, so we are actually an affiliate of the Administration Division of ACTE. So we try to focus on educational equity and access. And we were actually planning a conference in June in Tulsa, a professional development conference for instructors and administrators. But I mean, it's kind of up in the air now, but we're hoping to be able to reschedule that soon. But we need more people. We need more colleagues to jump in and help us in this leadership activity. So if you could, membership's $20 a year, and we would be really thankful to have more participation. So if you would just kind of keep that in mind. On the personal, thank you, Lauren. On the personal balance, it's interesting now that primarily most of us are working from home, and that's kind of new for some, and we all do it from time to time, but now that's our primary base of operations for a lot of people. So our home and work environments have essentially merged, and that's creating some possible new issues with people. Some may be handling it, if they have good coping skills, they may be doing fine, but others may be struggling. Home has historically been our sanctuary. We look forward to going there to unwind after a day's work, but now things have changed. So the water's a little muddier, if that makes sense to you. From a counseling perspective, I get feedback like, I don't know what I'm doing. My brain's foggy, feel a little disoriented. And that's not just students, that's professionals that I work with as well, and try to provide some counseling for. So I think good thing to do is try to set boundaries. So to be really intentional in our time with our family and free ourselves from work distraction when that time comes. Turn off the laptop, turn off the TV. I'm always seem like I'm always on my phone, and I remember my son would always say, "Put your phone down." You know, I think that's so important, especially now, to be really intentional about our family time. Be present at that time. To me, the family time is sacred and should be protected at all costs. And another thing I would recommend is practicing self-care, whatever that means to you. We need to take care of our mind, body, and spirit. You know, if we're full of stress and that's going to weaken our immune system, none of us want that, right? So we need to maintain our schedule of rest, proper sleep, stay hydrated, proper nutrition. I think we also need to create opportunities to laugh daily. Sometimes we get so serious right now with everything going on and then demands, but I always prescribe laughter. So if there's a way that we can create moments to laugh together as a family, or however we can do that. Other thoughts from the other panelists on ways to balance?
I know one of the things that we've done both at the college level, at the department level, and even at the center level is had weekly virtual connects. And those
Sure.
weekly virtual connects, we do some business work, but there's also some social connect there as well. It's almost
Good.
like, you know, take a coffee break with your friends and
Absolutely.
have a chance to talk. And that's even migrated into some folks that have had talents and do performing. Well, they're not performing anymore. So they actually did a Facebook Live performance for the group. And that was kind of fun. So, you know, find ways to support one another, both professionally and personally in the work you do. And I think Julie, you were right on, you know, give people a chance to be mindful, give people a chance to be reflective, and recharge your batteries, whatever that means for
Yes.
you. I mean, I cycle and I run, so I make time every day to get out and do one of those two activities for at least 45 minutes. And, you know, it extends my day, particularly early in the morning, but it's worth it.
Yes.
I think also we have to be aware of everything that you both said is spot on. It's really right. One of the things, in addition to ourselves and what we are doing, is to be aware of others and some of their situations. One of the things that our dean in one of the very first town halls that we had, when she came on, she reminded us, she said, look, you know, Penn State is your employer. You work for me in the College of Ed, but we understand you're working from home. We understand many of you have kids, in some cases small children, and they don't understand that demarcation that mommy or daddy's at work right now, and they're going to interrupt and do things. And she said, it is what it is. We want you to do your work. We want you to be productive. But on the other hand, we understand what's happening. We understand the situation. When she said that, there was about 300 people in that meeting, again online. There was almost a collective sigh, because people were so happy to hear someone in charge telling all of us that, you know, they weren't expecting us to be the same as we are when we're back in our offices. And I think we have to have that same feeling with pretty much everyone we come in contact with, especially online. I'm
enjoying watching the chat room as people suggest Netflix parties and dance parties. Those are things that are good for people of all ages. Julie, another question, kind of getting back to the supports for students. You're a licensed counselor. If you're speaking to teachers or administrators, what advice would you give them on helping students to cope with these quick changes in delivery modules?
Sure. Well, again, some students may be okay. I'm from higher ed, so a lot of our classes are online, but some of them that were in seat are transitioning too. So I think it could just be a challenge. I think our supports to students need to be equitable to the individual. You know, you could say, oh, well, you know, it's all equal. Everybody's online now, right? But equal does not necessarily mean equitable, you know? So equity is based on the needs of the individual. In order to be successful and resilient, we need to find out what that individual student or instructor, what they need to be successful. With a lot of students that I deal with, poverty is a huge barrier. With the current economy, you know, loss of jobs, domestic violence perhaps in the home, trauma. there's just, there's no perfect prescription for this one, but Lauren, do you still have that picture? A school principal tweeted this, and I always kind of look for a tweet or the meme of a week that really speaks to what we're going. And I don't know if everyone can see this in their computers, but I'll just read it. Have you ever taken an online class? How about 6 at once? When you were a teenager with spotty Wi-Fi and Schoolology crashing and needing to share a device with siblings while trapped at home, filled with fear and anxiety? Yeah, me neither. Let's cut these kids some slack. So thank you, Lauren. I think that that's something to really keep in mind as we're dealing with our students. And I have adult students, all of them are single moms and dads. So a new challenge they have is not only they're trying to learn from home on their classes, is now they're basically teachers because their kids have had to transition to online. So public school, so they're trying to facilitate their children's learning as well as their own. So, that just really kind of hit me this week when I got feedback from a lot of them. They're having to wear multiple hats and maybe with one laptop that they're all sharing in the family, So I think we just, that connection to our students, as we talked about earlier, that finding out what each of them need that we can try to help support or provide. We have a laptop donation program in my program, and then we're blessed to actually get some extra grant funds this school year so that we can actually purchase some laptops to check out to our students. Because some people just don't have that. Again, the Wi-Fi issue, that's kind of hard. My son teaches high school at an alternative school, and they've already got all these barriers, but now they're having to try to contact these kids that maybe don't even have internet. And the school says, well, we're going to pick up our Wi-Fi. They can go to the parking lot. Well, they may not even have a way to get to the parking lot. So there's all these equity issues that we're faced with. And I think it's going to kind of take a village to work together, collaborate to try to solve some of these problems. On the mental health side, that's why I'm seeing a lot of, and that's my big concern. So Lauren, if you would pull up the mental health resource link that I have for everyone. Okay, so this is Suicide Prevention Lifeline and Emotional Wellbeing during COVID-19 outbreak. And if you just kind of scroll, you'll see there's just so many different links here that can help our students. There's a link to CDC, disaster distress, local crisis lines, World Health, managing anxiety and stress, mental health support, based on geographic area. Okay. So that's a link for everyone to maybe perhaps share with their staff if they don't have it. Managing anxiety, helping someone who may be in a suicidal crisis. Okay. Thank you, Lauren. So yeah, I think we just have to do what we can to reach out to our students and let them know that we're still there, even if they're not seeing us, that we're still there, we're still available. Communication is key, staying connected. We use a lot of Skype, social media, of course, Zoom. I love the idea of the teachers creating their own little videos so that students can see their faces. One of the things that we do here is we partner with our local community resources to help support our students here. For example, my colleagues at Red Rock Behavioral Health is what we use. And we have an agreement with them where they'll actually pick up students who live on campus. If they have ongoing counseling, they will pick them up on campus and take them to their counseling appointment and then bring them back. So I think it's so important now to create those innovative partnerships with our local community resources more than ever with this going on now. Food banks, we have a food bank on campus, and I think, I'm able to do a referral for students to our local food bank as well. I think food insecurity is a real issue right now. I was glad to see a lot of our faith-based organizations pitching in to help provide food, as well as our public schools are still providing lunches daily here. Hopefully that's going on in a lot of states, but I love that. And the kids, from what I hear, the kids are just, just kind of run out, they're just so excited to see someone from the school, bus driver or whatever, and also to get the food. So that's we just got to collaborate and get through this together. We also work with Department of Rehabilitative Service to help students with disabilities, and they're able to sometimes allow a stipend for educational, extra educational money or gas or tire repair, things like that adults may need as well. Other thoughts from the other panelists on ways we can collaborate for?
I think one of the issues that we haven't been able to find a really strong solution for is what to do with the students who can't get internet access, even if they have a device. So
Absolutely.
do either of you, Jaime or Mike, have any other thoughts around some supplements?
Just a quick thought. I'm understanding that Verizon in certain areas in certain states is providing open hotspot and Wi-Fi access. So you may want to take a look and see if Verizon or some of the other providers are being generous in opening up Wi-Fi in your state or in your region or even in your community. That was something that I know was taking place, and I think it's worth at least exploring that, and if not, and potentially advocating or having a group potentially look to advocate on that. I think one of the other things that's important is to find out where you can go. I mean, McDonald's and your local library and those places have Wi-Fi, but with many states like Pennsylvania and New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut really limiting people's ability to be out and about, they become less of an option. I think the other thing that people have to be creative about, and that's where what Julie talked about with being creative and talking with your partners makes sense, is figuring out ways that you can provide supports for students, particularly students who are on 504 or IEP plans, in getting them information. And a lot of times just using the telephone. People have telephone and telephone access. And so you're able to do, telecommunication conferences. I know that many school districts are running their meals programs and still using their transportation services to get their meals out to those students and families that can't come in. You could use the old-fashioned packet materials for learning and have those delivered through your bus transportation system. Are options that you could think about. Again, just being creative and putting your head together with your partners and your stakeholders so that you can come up with creative ways to get educational services to the kinds of kiddos that need them. No easy answers at this point. I think they're going to be creative solutions at the local level, looking at the resources you have and just using that good old stick-to-itiveness to make sure that we remember that these are our kids, and we do need to provide them with education, and we do need to provide them with the continued supports through counseling and mental health services and school supports as need be.
Thank you for that, Mike. It's kind of a follow-up on the resources question. We've been talking a lot about resources that are made available to free. Are you aware of any policies or any advice being given for how future resources might be allocated to support students in better ways or to help us get back on track?
ACTE actually wrote a letter, and I don't know if people have it or not. I have it on a PDF file that I pulled down, but it's a letter from ACTE, from Leanne, and also from Advanced CTE from Kim that went to the chair and the ranking member of the Senate and the House committees on education and labor. And the letter basically talked about looking at emerging and forecasting needs in relationship to the COVID-19 current pandemic, and then recommendations for new investment. And they talk specifically about new investment in distance learning, talking about many of the things that we've talked about today, the shift from hands-on delivery, lab-based CTE programming to more online kinds of options and opportunities, and helping make that instructional shift, particularly with the heavy lift that many of you as CTE administrators are going through in the short term as we transition to distance ed. They talk about, building a digital and physical infrastructure, particularly in low-income community areas for low-income populations, and also for rural communities where Wi-Fi may not be as prevalent as it is in more suburban or metropolitan areas. Professional development, the fact that there's a need for rapid and immediate response in professional development, and they've even petitioned that under the Perkins legislation, some of those professional development dollars have some flexibility in relationship to meeting this immediate need. And then around the issues of equity and access, they are continuing to advocate that states and local communities have the resources to make sure we ensure that every school and post-secondary ed provider has the opportunity to meet the needs of providing high quality education, which would encompass these kinds of things. And they're suggesting some issues with the existing Perkins formula. They talk about work-based learning and flexibility there that needs to be incorporated. And then they make some very specific requests in relationship to waivers and distribution of dollars, and addressing some of the issues under the CARES Act that are germane to distribution of dollars. And if you haven't seen it, and I know this is not a great thing, but this is it, and I will actually make sure that I get that URL to Lauren so that she can distribute that if you haven't seen it.
Thank you. There is also a comment in the chat room, learning to braid funds with other organizations and agencies is pretty effective. So Marianne, thank you very much for that comment. Is definitely a point well taken. We are down to only a couple of minutes remaining. So I'd like to ask our panelists just in about a minute apiece to share their silver linings that they take out of this shift that we have been thrown into. So Julie, I'd like to start with you.
Sure. Well, I would just say as educators and humans that our human nature is to be resilient. And I think we're going to get through this. We're going to need to tap into each other, our professional developments, organizations, but just work together, support each other. If there's someone that you know that's suffering, see what you can do to help them. But just know that we will get past this, and we will learn, and we will grow.
Thank you. Mike?
I think that folks have an opportunity to explore really new networks and new partnerships, an opportunity to collaborate and to cooperate, and to use a wide angle lens on that. There may be folks out there in your community that you haven't thought about before who may be excellent resource support folks for you now out of necessity. But then keep in mind that they may be good partners moving forward out of practicality. So don't have your blinders on. Look at the wide angle view and build those partnerships, and use the tragedy of the COVID-19 crisis that we're in today to really become a building block for better partnerships for tomorrow.
Thank you. Jaime?
Anytime we're in a time period where there's stressors, or there's things that are out of the ordinary or unusual, they are unbelievably positive times in some cases for good, positive growth. They often lead to innovation that we've never thought of before. They lead to problem solving. So we have to look at those things, because those and there are people out there who are doing that right now, and we can maybe tap into that. So although it certainly can be stressful for all of us, there also will be things that come out of this that will be very innovative. We'll have new ideas, and we'll be looking at things a lot differently than maybe we have in the past. So we certainly have to focus on that positive.
Excellent. I'd like to thank today's panelists for sharing their ideas and resources, and also thank Lauren Philibrown for technical management of today's webinar. Stephen DeWitt has also been helping to manage the chat room, so thank you for that. And on behalf of ACTE, I'd like to thank you all for your membership and also for the great work that you do every day. We are privileged to be a partner with you in doing this great work. I hope you all stay well and have a wonderful rest of the semester. Take care.